Hello and welcome to our second Governor's video. My name is Stephen Baines and I am a publicly elected Governor for Skircoat and Lower Calder Valley and currently the lead Governor on the Council of Governors. I hope you are all looking after yourselves during the second wave of the pandemic. My fellow Governors and I have been very aware of the pressure that the second wave has put on the whole organisation at what is already a very busy time of year. A special guest speaker this time is Amy Booth, who is a trainee nursing associate at the Trust. Amy is going to talk about the impact COVID has had on her as she embarks on a nursing career. I'm sure you will find her video very moving. I now hand over to Amy.
I started working at CHFT as a healthcare assistant 3 years ago. I loved my job but wanted to progress my career, so I applied for the Trainee Nursing Associate, or TNA as it's known, programme, and was successful. The TNA programme is an alternative route into nursing to the traditional university route. As a TNA, I work in the Trust full-time and attend university 1 day a week while I train towards my goal of becoming a nurse. I have a base ward that I spend my 2-year training course on, and I go on placement every so often to gain knowledge and train in different areas of nursing. My base ward is Ward 5 at HRI, which is an elderly ward. Recently, due to the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, my ward has been designated as a COVID ward, so we are now caring mainly for elderly patients who have COVID, which has its challenges. We do sometimes have the odd patient admitted who is in the younger age bracket though too. Since the pandemic, my role has changed a lot and I've had to make sure that I'm flexible. I've felt an increased sense of responsibility because the workload has increased so much. Some of my colleagues have also been off work unwell due to COVID and other staff shielding. We now have added pressures of having to swab patients for COVID and keeping patients apart to try and keep them safe. One of the most difficult things has been making sure patients wear masks when mobilising around the ward to the bathroom. This has been particularly difficult with dementia patients who don't understand why they are in hospital, never mind that there is an ongoing pandemic that we need to protect them from. Shortly before my ward became a COVID ward, I was on placement in A&E, and I spent a lot of time in resuscitation. This meant that I was wearing a gown, visor, and FFP3 mask for long periods of time whilst caring for patients. The FFP3 mask gives a higher level of protection against water droplets that may occur during procedures. I really enjoyed this learning experience, although removing the FFP3 mask and being able to take in a deep breath of fresh air was such a relief. I would often finish my shift feeling sore and with red marks on my face from the PPE. I won't lie, it has been very challenging on the ward throughout the pandemic, especially for me as I am still in a trainee role. Wearing masks on the ward has posed a challenge as patients that are hard of hearing have been unable to lip read, making communication difficult. Dementia patients have also found it difficult when staff members have been wearing masks as they do not understand why we are wearing them. I imagine it can be quite daunting for them not knowing where they are or why people are walking around in masks. The worst thing for me about wearing masks is that patients cannot see you smiling at them, as this is an essential form of communication that can go a long way in easing patients' worries and helping them to feel comfortable. I've been working extra shifts on the ward when needed to help out. This has been exhausting at times. There have been days when I've gone home and fallen asleep within an hour of being home without eating because I'm so tired. I'm incredibly lucky to work with the most amazing, supportive team. When days have been difficult emotionally and physically during the pandemic, everybody has pulled together and worked as one big team across the ward, making sure that patient safety is always priority. On difficult days, I've always managed to laugh or smile thanks to my co-workers, and they have always been there to give me a pep talk or listen to me when I'm having a down day, which helps so much. I like to hope that I've also been a support to them throughout the pandemic. I've always gone into work with the attitude of, how would I like my granddad to be treated? And I make sure that I give my patients that same level of care. This attitude hasn't changed during the pandemic. In fact, it has made me even more determined to provide the absolute best care I can to the patients. But I find myself feeling stronger emotions than I previously would have. I've seen some things that I never thought I would experience. There was one occasion when a patient that I was caring for had been fine all day, sitting out in his chair and walking to the bathroom as required. His observations had been taken regularly and had been stable all day. Towards the end of my shift, the patient's oxygen levels dropped. We acted straight away, placing the patient on 15 litres of oxygen in an attempt to bring his levels back up and to keep him comfortable. And as it was out of hours, we also called the doctors straight away. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, the patient sadly passed away less than half an hour later. I went home from my shift that day in tears and feeling deflated that although we had tried our hardest, it wasn't enough. One of the most heartbreaking things for me has been seeing patients die without their family by their side, especially when it is because family members are too scared to come into the hospital onto a COVID ward. I completely understand this feeling as my anxiety levels have been at their highest ever throughout the pandemic. I'm not worried about myself, but I'm constantly thinking about the fact that I might take the virus home and make my family unwell. Caring for COVID patients has had a massive impact on my life outside of work, as I am unable to see any of my family. I'm very close to my mum, dad, sisters and granddad. I also have a 1-year-old nephew, Theo, who I think the absolute world of. He has started walking during the pandemic and I haven't been able to see any of that for myself, although I have been able to watch him and speak to him over video, thankfully. I've had a lot of emotional days whilst not being able to see them all, and I just miss them so much. All I want to do is run over to them, give them a cuddle and not let go. I know that it is for all the right reasons and it is my priority to keep them safe, but at the moment I seem to be crying at least once a day. I also have a 13-year-old stepson who my partner and I have not been seeing due to me working on a COVID ward. I find this really difficult as he is a big part of our lives. I know it's for everybody's safety that we are not seeing him, but I find it very difficult knowing that these things are not possible because of me working on the ward. It's important to find things to smile about in times like these. When I'm off work, I enjoy spending time with my rabbit Betsy, who is usually running around the living room going crazy, but does sit on the sofa and cuddle up with me. Recently I've been referring to her as my emotional support rabbit, because I'm sure she can tell when I'm feeling down. I talk to my mum on the phone a lot and she is always there for me when I need her. She's been such a support throughout the pandemic. Before we stop talking, she always asks me to list 3 things that I'm thankful for. Sometimes it's the small things like folding the washing away, but thinking about the positives of the day always puts a smile on my face and helps me feel better. Despite all the negativity of COVID and the experiences I've had because of it, there are some positives that have come out of it all for me. I've felt really well supported not only by my manager and the team that I work with, but also the trust as a whole. There are so many initiatives that have been introduced to help frontline staff like me to cope, and I'm very grateful that I work for such a caring organisation. Wearing full PPE in A&E, including the FFP3 masks, and having experienced what it is like, I now have a massive amount of admiration for my fellow colleagues who've been working on the front line in full PPE throughout the entire pandemic. My confidence in my own abilities has grown a lot, and I know that I can overcome whatever challenges I face when I qualify as a nurse. I also know now that I have definitely made the right career choice. COVID has taught me to be grateful for what I have, and as I mentioned earlier, I make a habit now of listing these things on a daily basis, which makes me feel so much better about everything. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about my experiences. Please do everything you can to keep yourselves and your loved ones safe, and as we say to each other at the Trust, we can do this. Bye for now.
Thank you to Amy for sharing her experiences. I'm sure a lot of what Amy has talked about resonates with many of you. I would like to say, on behalf of myself and the rest of the governors, how grateful we are to everyone at CHFT for the extra lengths staff have gone to during both waves of the pandemic. And that goes to everyone, to all the clinical staff and the huge number of support staff, keeping everything going behind the scenes. We couldn't have got through this without you. So to all the clinical staff, porters, cleaning staff, drivers, procurement teams, finance teams, occupational health, the research and development team, workforce and OD, infection and control staff, pharmacy staff, AHPS, health informatics staff, district nurses and community staff, staff manning our relatives line, staff in pathology, and all the admin and clerical staff, a big thank you from the Council of Governors. Finally, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Please do everything you can to keep yourselves and your loved ones safe. Bye for now.